Welcome to the Possibility Action Network podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Middleton, aka Possibility Man. We're committed to bringing you guests who strive to better people's lives and serve as a force for good in the world. Today, our guest is Ashley Barrow. Ashley, along with her 12-year-old son, Aaron, developed a digital platform called Reassist. It helps hospitals, patients, and caregivers navigate the complicated world of moving from hospital home or from hospital to a care facility. Ashley, welcome to the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Look, I tell you, I'm so excited that you're here. When I heard about you and the important work that you're doing, I thought I just got to have her on the podcast. And just so that people understand what we're talking about, as I said in an introduction, your work involves your business, your work involves how people navigate this complicated world of going from a hospital setting back home, or from a hospital setting to another care facility, or even, Ashley, and help me if I'm wrong, from a hospital setting to hospice. So this is pretty important stuff to me. Did I get that about right, about what you all
Yeah,
do?
you sure did. Yeah, we help individuals transition from acute to post-acute care, and whatever that may be. That may be home health, that may be hospice, that may be skilled nursing, inpatient rehab.
Yeah.
It's many different avenues, but we're just here to make it transparent and clear and get people connected to the right service. Yes.
Fantastic. I want to come back to that, and I want us to kind of dig into that real carefully because, you don't know this is important until you're in it, right? I mean, you don't know until a family member is there, or even you yourself is there. But I'll roll back just a minute, Ashley. At what point in your education would you say that you considered becoming a nurse?
Um, well, that's a really good question. And I'm not sure that, again, my thoughts are more based off of experience. So I had a grandmother that was 52. I was 4 years old and I was taking care of her, just as a grandchild could at that time, at that age, getting stuff for her. And I just always have been very nurturing. I went through vocational schooling, and did health technology. Then I went on to be a nurse. So I really got my nursing and my nurturing part of me through just life experience, unfortunately, since the age of 4.
Uh-huh, I see. That's
Mm.
important. So, what prompted you, along with your son Aaron, he must be quite a kid, to start this digital platform? What was your motivation to do this?
Again, life experience. So I had been in case management, did some rehabilitation liaison work and clinical liaison work. And I had a family member, more than one family member, go through a position or a transition where they were in a hospital environment and they needed to go to another level of care or be connected to services. And it was very, we didn't really know what to do and how to navigate that, and kind of just trusted different opinions and things like that. So what I wanted to do was go a little bit deeper and see what that really looked like for the individual and get to know that part of it. So the way it all started with me and my son was, it was COVID.
Uh,
And I had been in these working environments as like a case manager. I had been in a rehabilitation liaison position and worked really hard to build my relationship within the community. And I think I did pretty well with that. But when COVID happened, kids went home remotely from school. So I had three that had remote learning at the time. And just so happened, I had a chance to think. Now, Stephen, did you know that innovation happens a lot of times at rest?
yes.
So when I was actually not so involved with other infrastructures and processes, I was able to think through all my years experience from the
Mhm.
time I was 4, caring for my grandmother, working with my other family members that went through this transition of care, and really figured out how could I make a difference in this? And
Mhm.
as I was planning and involving kind of like my children in process or just bouncing ideas off of them, my son was able to create the first MVP of the project. I had no idea he had that technical skill, but that's how it all happened.
Wow. What does Aaron think about all of this? I mean, what does he think about, reassist and what you're trying to do here?
He loves that we're trying to help people. We've been having to help. We've had to help all of my life and then my kids' life, caring for a family member typically, or a loved one, or even a friend. We just have always, as a family, been able to have that nurturing part of us that has always been in a place of help. So anytime we're helping someone, it's almost a ministry for our family, honestly, that we go out and we do that. That's just something that we've been called to do. So naturally, he loves to do that, and then that understands the technical part of it has been really good for us. Yeah.
That's fantastic. So how did you come up with the name? And I love the name of the company, Reassist. That's so creative.
Thank you for that. And the name is very important. And you're the first person I've ever asked me that. So the name comes with, if you can imagine being in a hospital and you need to go to that next level of care. Let's say you had a traumatic event happen and all of a sudden you have a new disability. You know how devastating that is for a person, especially a younger person that likes to do things like drive and go out to the movies and hang out with their friends and things like that. And let's say they had a traumatic event and they can't walk and they have to cope with a disability where they cannot do the things that they used to do. So we want to put this platform in front of people right at the point of care,
Yeah.
when they have an event like that, and then allow them to have a renewal,
Wow.
a revitalization, a restart, a rebuild, restore them. We want to redo it for them. We want to give them another try. We want to give them another chance
Yeah.
by accessing appropriate resources to help them cope with their disability so they can improve their quality of life.
Yeah.
That's what the platform is for.
That's fantastic. We'll dig more into the platform in a moment, but I want to just kind of look at this process because many people, I mean, if you are, I mean, I would say almost all of us on the planet have known or will know someone who's been to a hospital and then first I want to use the word discharge, but even that process is not a simple process, is it? Whenever you leave the facility back home.
It's not. Did you want me to talk more about that?
Yeah, go ahead.
So typically when a person is ready to discharge, there's a lot of internal and external factors that play along with it. There's insurance. That's the person's capability or what they can endure as far as maybe a rehab. They have to consider their informal supports, like what kind of family can help, or paid people that can come in and provide help. Are they connected to like a housing that has these type of supports? Or are they going home independently? So there's a lot of different factors, and everything is case by case per person. So it's just it's chaos, to be honest, of how to get someone connected to the right services for their particular need.
Right.
So that's what that looks like there.
I got you. And that's just so important. And pardon me for cutting you off there, but I'm just thinking about this, just something simple as, and I want to look at discharge first. And I'm not sure if it's fair to segregate discharge from transition, but allow me to just look at discharge I think a lot of people don't face this. Just something as simple as if a person, for example, has been in a hospital, I'm asking you now, and they leave to go to the hospital because of, let's say, an auto accident, and now they can't walk, as you've said before. When they get home, they got to think about a few things if their home is not accessible. Is that right? So it's like you got to be in the process of planning. So tell us more about what should people be thinking about when a loved one go in and when a loved one or even themselves come out.
Well, first, I love this subject so much. I'm so passionate about it. First and foremost, work with the hospital, the therapist there, the case management there, and see if going back to your environment is the most, the best thing for you to do. There are other options there where you can may go to a rehabilitation facility, or you may need to get connected to service. But let's look at this where a patient has a motor vehicle accident, and let's say they are having some difficulty walking, they can't get around as good, but they're still safe to go home. So what we want to look at, and what the patient should be looking at, is how many steps is it to get into your front door? Is that a barrier? Are you weight bearing when you go home? Well, you got to know that, because a lot of times, sometimes they might want you off your feet or off your limbs for a certain amount of time. What your supports at home are. Do you have someone that can help with, getting medicine or getting things running to the store? Or do you have somebody that can literally help you do some work, like get you to the toilet and back and stuff like that? Understand that's very different. Supervision versus doing any type of lifting or anything like that is very different. So know that. Do you need to get connected to any equipment at home? Do you need to have someone come to the home and help with maybe medication education, like a skilled nursing company, or maybe a companion service where someone's doing non-skilled care and just there so you're safe, and things like that. So those are just some brief examples of some things to think about. But if you can look at that example alone, how unique that person's need is and the questions behind it, and just things to be looking at and thinking about when you're in this process.
Yeah, I mean, listening to you, Ashley, I mean, this just reminds me is that the planning has to begin before the day of discharge. If you wait until the day of discharge, to me, it just sounds like it's too late. A couple of things that occurred to me, and tell me if I'm off through all of this, but several things that occurred to me. What if a person lives in a house, and let's say the discharged person can go home, but they just can't use their legs? They're in a wheelchair, someone's pushed them into the house. Is something as simple as, do they have a high toilet seat or low toilet seat? Is that important? You don't need to be thinking about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Equipment is definitely important to realize that. Does there need to be grab bars in the shower so nobody's falling? Things like that. So equipment is definitely important. Again, your informal supports, what does that mean really? Can somebody actually help you, or are they just going to be there to supervise, like answer a door or let someone in? And then home health, if you do get connected to home health, is the amount of hours that they're coming in the home sufficient? Or are they just coming to do bathing, hands-on care for 1 hour or so? Or do you need to get connected to a waiver program that can offer more support? So it's just realistically thinking through those, the care transition and what that looks like. But hopefully in this acute event, where there's a motor vehicle accident or something like that, maybe you just need some physical therapy to come to your house a couple times a week, and then you get better with the supports that you have there.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's
that's
all
great.
different.
Yeah, that's great, Ashley, because I'm emphasizing this because I want people who hear you on, whatever platform, hear this or see you on whatever platform they watch, to understand that if a loved one, or even themselves, find themselves in a situation, that pre-planning to go home or to go someplace is so important. So I think you've made that point. But so let me ask you this, because a lot of us think that we're in a hospital, everything should go right, but in talking with you and learning about you, it's like, wait a minute, some things can go wrong. Is that about right? Can things go wrong
It
in
can
just the
now.
discharge process?
Yeah, it can now. With all due respect to hospitals, they do have an infrastructure that is definitely set up to help individuals transition, with the most people with a lot of expertise, a lot of education, and they do a fine job. Now, a little bit of a barrier is when patients really don't expose all of the information needed a lot of the time sometimes, or if some information isn't conveyed through communication from one clinician to another, sometimes it's lost in communication. So let me give you an example, or if you want me to.
Yeah, please give me an example. Yes.
Yeah, let me give you an example. So let's say we got a patient that had a spinal cord or a spine surgery. Okay, it was all set up. Everything was good. The person went to the hospital, had the surgery, and they were all teed up to do a little bit of rehab afterwards. They go to the rehab place, and then after they discharged from the rehab, they were supposed to get home health involved in just a little bit of continued physical therapy at the home.
Mhm.
The person is at the home and is waiting for this connection for home health. It didn't start at the hospital. Sometimes that happens where they come in and they introduce themselves and make sure you're all teed up and connected at the hospital, but that didn't happen. So the patient is just waiting for the service to start. They call the home health and they find out that the home health care does not accept their insurance, so they're not coming out. So that patient is like, what am I supposed to do? Like, I was supposed to have home health. I'm stronger, but I'm not 100%. And I need to learn how to navigate my home environment. I was fine when I was at the rehab and they had the parallel bars and they had all that fancy specialized equipment. But now I'm at home. And you're right, my toilet is a little bit too short
Right.
for me now. And yeah, I need grab bars in my shower. I might even need a shower chair. And I didn't think of that. And neither did the therapist at the facility think of that. So anyway, this guy doesn't get connected to home care because unfortunately they don't take his insurance. He's calling, trying to figure out who takes his insurance now. And unfortunately he falls and now has a broken hip.
Mm.
So
Yes.
now we got a patient that we had all perfect at the hospital,
Right.
all perfect at the skilled nursing facility, and then goes home and nothing is like they thought it would be. And here we are with a hip. Now we got a spine and a hip.
Yeah.
It's like,
Wow.
oh my goodness, what happened? Like,
Yeah, and that's why it's so important for us to have this conversation, because people, and the hospitals are aware that in the discharge or even transition, I'm using it differently right now, that re-injury or new injury could occur if someone doesn't handle that process well. And you just gave a classic example. Oh, let me also say this, and I'm sure you would agree. I am not, being critical of hospitals. Medical workers are hardworking people. They do the very best. All of those things are very true. But when you deal with so many people, so much paperwork, so many different institutions, things can go wrong. May I share one example with you that I heard about? And I want
yeah.
you to respond to it. I know of someone who was supposed to do lab from a hospital. And the hospital said that the facility that we're going to send your material to, your blood work to, accepts Medicare. And they said that you'll get a call from that institution. Well, the person got a call from the institution, and guess what, Ashley? They said, hey, you owe us $1,000 before we can do the work. He said, wait a minute. So he had to get back to the hospital and educate the hospital about the problem that he encountered. Do you think this is a rare event, or do you think these kinds of things may happen, occasionally?
Yeah, I think they happen. I think they happen all the time. And that's one of the things we're looking for is cost transparency to put our platform in some later phases. But those things happen. It's different institutions interpret things differently. Sometimes there just needs to be education behind that. But that's an unfortunate that happened to your friend. But yeah, things like that does happen. It
Yeah.
does.
And that's why this raises another important thing. And I think this is a part of what you do, is that the patient, because frequently, including me, we can defer to our doctor, we can defer to the hospital, we can defer to some other institution to take care of things from us. But in talking with you, it's like, wait a minute now, you got to be a part of this process and even have an advocate on your side as you look at this process. So
Yes. Would you like me to talk more about
yes,
that?
yes, please.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm gonna be real honest with you. In my career, I always thought I was so great at case management because I've lived these resources since I was 4. I mean, my grandmother, I talked about her and other family members that have just had decline in function. And then we had to work. We have a history in our family of just caring for people in the home and not really going to rehabs and things like that. So we would naturally just connect people to different community resources. So I've been doing this forever, but I tell you what, it wasn't until I had an experience with a close family member of mine that actually needed an amputation. She was going through a lot of different seasons where she needed to be connected to services, connected to different equipment, connected to different programs, and go through a lot of things. So you have to become an advocate when you're fighting for a life. And I'm sure a lot of people have experienced that if they had a senior or an aging adult that they're taking care of, or even a person with a developmental disability or physical disability, and how they navigate just living life and getting connected to the right services. Because we even talked about before how, if your interpretation of something from, like, let's say a social economical point of view, if you don't understand that lifestyle that someone may live, like a diabetic that lives in a food desert, but they keep having high blood, high A1Cs, or a person that is affected by their environment and in addition have a disability or a chronic illness that they're coping with, how do we get on the level of that person and help them on that level, on that grassroots level? You know what I'm saying?
I know
So we
what
can
you're
really
saying.
take care of a person, if that helps get with the answer.
Yeah, that's great. Just two thoughts occurred to me, because one thing is that one can have the expectation that you're discharged, okay, and then life is over for you. It's like you go home and then there's nothing, but you can be discharged. It could be an exciting new beginning. People could have new tools to work with to make their life have a better quality of life. Is that about it? Is that it doesn't have
Yeah.
to be over. It could be good quality of life if you get what you need.
Absolutely. Yeah. But we got, again, as clinicians and as individuals in that space, we also, again, have to think with that factor that, maybe there's all low furniture. If you look at now, sectionals are so low, those new like um, couches that kind of go into like a L shape, they're very
Yes.
popular, but they're very low to the ground. Could you imagine somebody that may have a difficult time getting up, trying to get off of one of those? So they might need to be connected to a lift chair or something. These are things that we want to foresee so we can help. So then there's not a fall or someone can't get up and then they need a lift assist from the fire department. Things like that is what I'm trying to include in our application. So people are thinking of these things and they can search and filter through them is what I'm
Yeah,
trying to.
I'm thinking about a scenario now, and this is something that I've witnessed, and it's about a rural family. Both are adults. Both are in the same demographic. Both have limited education. In one case, and I still can't figure this out. In one case, actually, one adult got all of the gadgets she needed, including she could step on a scale and the hospital in another city could know whether she weighed herself or not to manage it. But there's another person, actually, same demographics, same situation, for whatever reason, she's not accessing the services that are available. And I just can't figure this out. I ask myself, what's missing in these two scenarios? As I said, exact same scenario. So it's not they're like one culture, a different culture, same different demographics. One gets all kind of resources, the other one doesn't. I don't understand.
Just access and transparency. And that's what we're trying to bring to, we want everybody to have access and opportunity. And that's what we're trying to bring through the platform. But that happens all the time. So if you got a case manager, let's say one of the guys or the people that you're working with is working with a case manager like me all their life, have had to find resources. So whatever situation you're in, I'm going to find something to help you, right?
Yeah.
But then you may have someone that may not be exposed to that and think that just giving you an application to fill out for services and then they'll educate you on that later type of thing, that causes a delay, but that stuff happens. I mean, it's all about, so what I'm trying to do is put that insight into the platform so that people can just search and it'll pop up for them and it can be transparent and they can have access.
I got you. Before we dig into the platform, I got another question to ask you. What
Yeah.
about the emotional side of all of this? I mean, once again, we don't think about this until it happens, and maybe even the patient may not be aware of it. But you end up in a facility and you're going home, and because of the nature of your situation, you're having emotional issues. And you're not even able to even identify what they are. I mean, is that something that happens, or am I like reaching into a world here?
Oh man, can you imagine not only the patient but the family members?
Yeah.
It's like, what?
Yeah.
I thought we were supposed to be here for a month and it's 2 weeks and she's ready to go home.
Yeah.
We're not even ready for this on a mental the capacity the family can have or the patient on just taking care of a loved one in that situation, which may need a little bit more, like I said, get connection before they can really be safe. And yeah, that does take a toll. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm trying to contain myself because this is such an
Yeah,
important
isn't it?
so I understand why you're passionate. I'm trying to keep myself contained. But
Oh,
look,
yeah, that's
yeah,
good.
and then but just getting out of the hospital is important because the longer you stay there, bad things can happen through no fault of anybody, right? So you got this push, you want to get out of there when you're healthy because you don't want to risk infections, but at the same time, you want to make sure that you're prepared as well. So
Yes, yes.
Hmm. So let's go back to reassist and try to talk more about this because I want people to understand this platform. But let me ask you my first question as I've thought about this. Is it geared more for institutions or is it geared for families and institutions?
Families and institutions. So what Reassist does is we replace the paperless directory and care planning. So typically when someone is at a hospital or they're in the community and they have a decline in function, lack of support, they need to get connected to goods or services. Typically, you'll see a paperless directory with names, phone numbers, addresses, and things like that. But it doesn't really, it doesn't tell you if it accepts your insurance. It doesn't do all of that. So that's very time consuming with a lot of calls made, and you sometimes don't get to the right person. It could take hours, days to get connected to the right service. So what we do with Reassist is we allow individuals to kind of just filter through a couple categories, and then they should be able to get kind of like the right information they need at their fingertips within seconds.
Yeah.
So let me answer that question now. So for the institution, what it will do is it will save with productivity, length of stay in hospitals. It will expedite the referral process, and it will increase utilization between providers. For the patients, it will give them more access to like that person in the rural community that wasn't connected as much. It will allow them to be just as connected as another person because they'll have all the resources at their fingertips right there by just searching and filtering different care needs.
Got you. Yeah, and I want to make sure people understand what we're talking about here is that, and I want to call this the old way, even though it's still a prominent way. The old way, paper. The hospital, you're discharged, you get this paper and all of this stuff that's supposed to happen. But you're replaced, well, you tell me whether it's replaced, maybe it's an addendum to paper is your digital platform, which is searchable. So tell us more about this
Right.
platform.
So yeah, so with what we're replacing, so typically it's a paper list that's given in let me see if I can find one right here. It may just be a paper list that it's not right here on my fingertips, but a paper list directory with names, numbers, and addresses. Let's say you're going to a skilled nursing facility or you need to find a facility that suits your needs, right? So the way they provide choice, like a choice, because you have to have choice, is they give you a choice list with a directory of names, numbers, and addresses. So you'll still have your discharge plan, like you kind of talked about, but this is to kind of before all that happens, you get a choice of where you want to go for your care. And it's typically in a directory form.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. And, I just want to emphasize because, as I said, I think our culture, at least from my understanding, and I could be wrong, is to believe that the hospital always will get it right. And that doesn't mean that people aren't competent. It just means that with so many people, so many parts moving, things can go wrong. So
They can.
yeah.
But can I add to that real quick?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
So in this situation, it's really quite odd because hospital cannot really help you choose because there's laws against that, like anti-kickback laws or anti-staring. So literally with this is patient choice, and people typically either go to like Google, they use word of mouth. They just really don't know, but it's up to them where they go, what services they choose. Totally up to them. Everybody's hands is off. You could have had surgery and had all this stuff going on. And literally, it's your choice. They give you a paperless directory. Their hands is off. You let them know where you want to go, and then they'll figure out as far as the referral, the rest of that, that for you. But that choice part, that is a patient choice. But it's not a lot of clarity around, exactly what that looks like.
Yeah, that's important to know. So is Reassist, the Reassist digital platform, is it available now?
We're launching it. We got a couple kinks to work out, but it is available. We're launching it. But again, right now, our goal is to get with institutions that want to partner with us to work this process out. This is very new. We're going from a patient list to a whole full digital health platform. So there's implementation process that need to be in place, like, vetting and fact finding services. We need to give service providers access to the platform so they can manipulate some things so patients can then have up-to-date data. So there is an implementation process with this. So right now we're looking at hospital systems to partner with to do this implementation process, get the platform populated, and then put it in front of those individuals now that are going to be able to access that through the hospital. But we also are working through strategic partners in the community that this will be available for too. So I don't want to say it's not going to be, you might not see it as a patient or a person in the community, you will, but there's processes we're going through now because we're so early on.
I see. So if a patient is in a hospital, or family members, loved one is in a hospital, they couldn't go to the hospital case manager and say, look, I want to look at this platform called Reassist and have them show it to them. That's not available yet.
Right. It's not available yet, but we're working on those relationships so it can happen. But yeah, if they're requested, I'm getting around, so I'm sure somebody knows something about it. But yeah, that's where we're at now, in hopes that if we meet people at the point of care where they have that choice, where it's most critical, so we can again renew and all that stuff, revive and all that stuff that we want to do, give a person another chance, they will have it at the time or at the point of care when that choice is there and no one really is helping, with that for many different reasons. But we just want to add accessibility and transparency to that part.
So. Yeah. So is the Reassist digital platform easy to use?
Oh, yes. So it's very easy to use. It's very in really good, clear font, just clickable for the most part. Navigation. Individuals are able to just search, like if they want cardiac care, they want to search that, a whole list of different resources to pop up. It's just really, really easy to use for the clinician and then also the patient as well. Yeah.
That's great. So, you've been around for about a year, is that right?
Yep, about a year. Mm-hmm.
Have you won any business development grants along the way?
Oh yes, I have. So I have won a couple of grants. I got Main Street Ventures. They did a launch grant. We got that. We were able to tap in some funding from I believe Ohio Third Frontier. We've also been able to be supported by a group called Mortar. So different entities. The state of Ohio was giving some grants away. We were able to tap into some of those. So
that's fantastic.
We were able to actually start our whole process and develop our platform, all non-dilutive funding, so all grant funding. So thank you everybody for supporting me on that.
That's fantastic. So what's next for Reassist? Where do you see this going?
Next? Oh my!
I want your vision board, Ashley. This is your vision board.
You know what? Honestly, the only thing I want is somebody to get in front of a patient at the time or at the point of care where they have that choice, and it's critical that they get connected to the right goods or service or the right service, and they have Reassist in front of them and they're able to transition without flaw and actually improve and get better. If I see that, I'm just gonna be so happy. That's what I worked so hard for.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
But beyond that, the goal would be to, finish launching this, get into a hospital system that sees value in this and that they're implementing this and that we can continue to do this. But the goal again is to improve quality of life.
That's great. So how old is Aaron now? Your co-founder?
He's 13.
He's 13. Look, when you speak with him again, let him know that I think he's a genius to have contributed to the development of this platform. In fact, I wouldn't mind interviewing Aaron at some point. So
oh my goodness.
Yes, just let him know that I think that. Actually, is there anything else you care to share with us that we have not talked about?
No, but I tell you what, I hope that somebody has found value in this. This is again a passion of mine, and it's mostly off of experience. I've been in some really different types of different ways. I'm sorry, I'm losing my words here, but I've been in many different situations from young until as old as I am now, where I've had to advocate for someone that didn't get connected to the right service. I can't tell you how many times I've been on the bedside of a traumatic brain injury or a spinal cord injury to sit with their families there, like, is there anything we could do? Is there anything we could do? And I'm not sure if they went to rehab after their hospital stay or what, but it's a difference. It's a difference if you get connected to the right services, sooner than later. And I'm just trying to provide that transparency so everyone can have an opportunity, if possible, to get the best care. So I just want to thank you so much for your time. It's been absolutely wonderful. I hope that the passion that I have for the platform and helping people has come across in this podcast. And if there's anything I can do for you, please let me know.
Okay, great, Ashley. Thank you so much. It was wonderful to have you as a guest, and you made it clear. We have to be alert and know that in transitioning or discharge, we can't just drop the ball on it. So thank you again for being with us.
All right, thank you.
You've been listening to the Possibility Action Network podcast with your host, Stephen Middleton. Our guest today has been Ashley Barrow, the co-founder with her son Aaron of Reassist, a digital platform. Ashley, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Okay.